financial controller for the business products department. They had worked closely together on many large projects over the years and built a reputation as a successful team. This 5-day, all-expenses-paid vacation to Myrtle Beach was a Shepherd Network's Platinum Club reward for the company's top 10 performers and their spouses. Chad and William had been on the list for 3 of the last 5 years. The friends continued to tease and taunt each other as they played through another 4 holes. They stopped by the clubhouse for a few minutes to take a bathroom break and purchased 2 bottles of orange juice, then continued to the 10th hole. It was a short 110-yard par 3, but with a ridge of trees along the back of the green and 2 large water hazards. Chad checked his watch, while William adjusted his form to tee off. It was 9:45, so they were making good time. "Nice shot," Chad exclaimed as they watched William's tiny white golf ball fly in a perfect arc down the middle of the fairway, over one of the ponds, and then roll to the edge of the green. William grinned in obvious delight, then stepped back so Chad could take his turn. About a minute later, Chad pulled back to take a restrained swing with his 7-iron. But something bright caught his eye off in the tree line just as he was following through to hit his ball, and he lost his focus. Chad knew right away that his aim was off and that he had used too much force. He watched with dismay as the ball flew over the green and disappeared into the foliage behind the hole. "Well, at least it didn't end up in the water, right?" William stated with an amused look on his face. Chad twisted his mouth with annoyance, but didn't bother to respond. As they walked to the cart, his eyes drifted to the trees again, directly in line with where his ball had landed, wondering what had distracted him to begin with. He drove them through the short fairway and parked on the path near the putting green, then headed off into the brush to try and find his ball. The foliage turned out to be denser than he had anticipated, thick with bushes between a row of mature, majestic live oak trees. Chad's limit for looking for a lost ball was about 5 minutes max. He bent low, hoping his ball would be visible from where he stood, saving him the effort of maneuvering his large body through a barrier of prickly branches. He slowly walked along the edge of the grass, using his club to push leaves and loose dirt around, but there was no sign of the small white sphere. He let out a deep sigh, then looked behind him to the tree, trying to reassess the vector of his swing. The ball should have landed within the area he had estimated, so it must have dropped down deeper into the trees. William was still struggling with his putt, so Chad decided to have one more quick look around. About 30 seconds later, he spotted the familiar white orb with the Shepherd Network's logo clearly visible. It was a few yards into the bushes, nestled against the wide trunk of a massive tree. Chad pushed his way through the shrubbery, then stopped as he heard rustling from above him. He looked up into the thick branches above, and a second later caught a glimpse of a round, tubular object catapulting down toward him. Instinctively, he leaned back with his hands lifted, but not fast enough. The heavy metal object clipped him at the side of his head before he managed to catch it with both hands. "Rotted!" The loud expletive came from somewhere up in the shady green canopy, and the Jamaican slang caused Chad to raise his eyebrows in surprise. He looked down into his hands and quickly realized that he'd caught some sort of camera lens, one that was probably quite expensive, judging from the weight and size. He then touched the tender spot on his skull to check for blood. Though his finger came away clean, the area was a little tender. Chad looked up again, trying to locate the negligent owner. There was more rustling, then a flash of orange color and additional cursing. Several seconds later, he was still looking up into the tree, waiting for the clumsy person to finally emerge. "Oh, thank God!" The exclamation came from behind him, so Chad quickly turned around with his eyes flashing to demonstrate his annoyance. The sharp retort he was ready to bark back died quickly on his lips as his gaze dropped to the tiny woman standing in front of him.